Welcome back to Food for Change, a podcast from the Global FoodBanking Network where we bring together big ideas, bold innovations, and inspiring action to serve up solutions for people and planet. This podcast is made possible thanks to the generous support of Kellanova. Kellanova strives to provide a delicious choice of brands that people know, trust, and enjoy, and is committed to advancing sustainable and equitable access to food and creating better days for people and planet. And also by HEB. HEB grocers and markets strive to be a workspace and shopping environment that is rooted in an unwavering belief that each and every person counts. Since the inception of its hunger relief program, HEB has donated over 1 billion pounds of food to help nourish neighbors and communities throughout Texas and Mexico. Last week, we heard from law experts and food bankers on the ways that policy and advocacy each play a role in reducing food waste, strengthening food security, and shaping more resilient food systems. This week, we're digging into the role of businesses from across industries. Because food banking isn't just good for people and planet, it's good for business too. We're kicking things off with Gonzalo Muñoz, a UN climate change high-level champion and co-founder of Ambition Loop, Stephanie Slingerland, Chief Philanthropy Officer for Kellanova, and Danny Flores, Senior Manager of HEB's Hunger Relief Program. Let's dig in.
I'm Jason Woods from the Global FoodBanking Network, and you're listening to Food for Change, serving solutions for people and planet. We're here today with Gonzalo Muñoz, who founded or co-founded Ambition Loop, Sistema B, and Manuia, organizations that focus on circular economy and sustainable ethical business practices. Gonzalo is also a member of the Global FoodBanking Network's board. Gonzalo, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thanks to you, Jason. It's just a privilege to be able to talk to you.
Gonzalo, when was the first time you heard about food banking, and how did you get connected with GFN and Red de Alimentos Chile?
Well, in Chile, there is some kind of very concrete experience. Like historically, I've been hearing about the logic of, it's called common pots. It's a communitarian big pot where people in need, mostly in the very vulnerable neighborhoods in Chile, traditionally women will meet and they will bring whatever they have to do a common pot to feed the others, right? So, and in order to get there, they will be searching for surplus, or they will be searching for food that would have been wasted. So there is a sort of tradition that in certain neighborhoods, mostly in certain moments in history or due to disasters, people will gather to collect food and prepare the food for those in need. So because of that, I've been connected to the topic my whole life.
Gonzalo, I read an article that described you as a serial social entrepreneur because you've had a hand in founding so many businesses that focus on addressing challenges in our food systems. So I was wondering, in your head, what role do businesses play in transforming our food systems, and what kinds of business partnerships or models do you think are most effective in that regard?
Well, from my point of view, and due to my experience and what has been my life, I have no doubt whatsoever that businesses have a crucial role to play in enabling this transformation as well as many others. And we're seeing many transformations happening with businesses playing that critical role. I can refer to the energy transition. I can refer to the transport system. I can refer to even in general how nature-based solutions are being placed. But in these cases, from production to logistics and consumption, the private sector can and always should drive systemic change in the ways that are not only powerful, but also has all the external benefits, reducing waste, supporting regenerative agriculture, strengthening communities. There is a role that is very hard to imagine someone else doing it, because if you help to align all the incentives, it works much rapidly, and therefore the impact can be broader. But also for the benefits that businesses gain themselves from more resilient supply chains to new business opportunities. So it's so evident that that's the case, that we're seeing many places in the world, and we can redesign the whole of the system in a way that businesses can play that role on enabling really fast. These opportunities are also so relevant that according to the Food and Land Use Coalition, transforming food system can unlock $4.5 trillion in new business opportunities annually by 2030. So we're helping on accelerating that transition as much as we can in order to get there, because we understand all the co-benefits of doing so.
And transitioning a little bit, what role do you see government playing in terms of transforming our food systems?
Well, the governments first, like, they provide the rules of the game, right? And they can either incentivize and accelerate, or sometimes, as happens, they can put the blocks that will not allow us to move forward in the right way. And I can see that game, let's say, being played in so many countries in the world. So I would say, like, the first one means removing barriers, as food systems encompass an amazing array of action practices and policies that lay at the heart of sustainable development, nutrition, climate, and nature, lying at the center of the world's most pressing challenges and ambitions. Governments can and should always set the rules of that game, and, as I said, start by removing any barrier that can allow us to move on for the right type of development, right type of nutrition, right type of climate and nature action. So we need governments to integrate food systems into their climate strategies, to set targets for food waste and reduction, to incentivize regenerative practices, and to provide a just transition from the current approach. As I said in the first part of this conversation, every time I had the privilege of meeting a major or a subnational government leader, I always tell them, like, your low-hanging fruit is to work organic waste reduction immediately. That is a no-brainer.
As you know, COP30 is coming up, the UN's annual climate event, Conference of Parties. What are the important opportunities for food systems at this year's COP?
Well, since COP Dubai, we have had now food systems, and I would say food and agriculture systems transformation as one of the central themes. And it's, in this case, COP30 did the same. They put food systems transformation into the center, into one of the 6 main axes of the action agenda. It's mentioned as the third axis. It's transforming agriculture and food systems. You won't have sustainable agriculture without avoiding any food loss. You don't have a resilient, adaptive, and sustainable food system without using every surplus, every single product that is in the system for being finally eaten and providing that nutrition element. And you won't have an equitable access to adequate food and nutrition for all without the role of the food banks.
I think we know that we need a lot of different climate solutions acting in concert to address the challenges that we're facing. But for this COP in particular, are there any specific climate solutions you're most excited about?
I mean, one very specific solution that I can mention is a food bag inside a trading post that created opportunities for Filipino farmers. The project was led by the Global FoodBanking Network and funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, and successfully is reducing food waste and post-harvest losses by facilitating a food bank where farmers can exchange surplus produce for essential goods. The initiative has enhanced food security for local farmers and their families, while improving nutrition to school children through donations of surplus vegetables to all the feeding programs in the schools. And then additionally, the initiative has supported farmers' livelihoods by first implementing a barter system and promoting sustainable food recovery practices. The project was then designed to be scalable and replicable at other trading posts across the Philippines. That's a very concrete one that we're not only excited about, but also proud as part of the Global FoodBanking Network.
Gonzalo, I have one more question for you. What is one specific change you want to see in the near future in our food systems?
Well, as I said, I'm obsessed with organic waste, something that needs to be solved all around because it has like so many positive externalities when societies, when communities, they understand the importance of managing food waste in the proper way. First, by starting reducing every food that is still feasible of getting eaten, not to go to waste. That's of course extremely important as an efficiency, but also as a moral element of the general organic waste management. Then, if you manage organic waste, it's 50% of general waste, and therefore you can reduce the cost of the system by ensuring that that part of the waste becomes some type of new positive product, can become energy or can become soil or can become even other types of materials. But that also creates a cultural change. When people start managing their organic waste, they immediately start watching at what is being wasted and then relate to it in a different way. It cleans, of course, the inorganic waste that can be then recycled or sorted in a much more efficient way. It dignifies the role of waste pickers or people sorting that. And as I said, it provides a lot of possibilities. One of the possibilities is what happens to people, what individuals can rapidly change. And I want to see a truly people-centered approach to the design of these transformations. Because I know that solutions that are centered on people and the communities are the ones that can last longer and can create the most impactful changes. Also, I want to see the collaborative initiatives that are helping connect the whole of the value chain, from farmers, cooperatives, community leaders, technical experts, businesses, and investors, that while working together can definitely unlock the transitions. I would also aim at giving the approach of a more inclusive. I would like to see that the more inclusive outlook in policy making and decision making processes in order to actively support farmers, food producers, indigenous people. I'm willing to see that more and more. So in this way, we would achieve a more democratic, resilient, equitable food system, one that restores ecosystems, that nurtures people, and that empowers communities to be active shapers of the solutions that we require so urgently.
Gonzalo Muñoz, thank you very much for the conversation today.
Thank you, Jason. My pleasure.
Today we're here with Stephanie Slingerland, Head of Social Impact at Kellanova. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Stephanie.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
So over the course of your career, how have you seen the landscape of social impact investment change?
From the nonprofit side, what that means is where maybe at one time you went to a corporate partner, you pitched a great program or event, and you put their logo on something and, talk about great impact together. Many partners want to get more deeply involved with the work with nonprofit partners, which I think is a great opportunity and sometimes a challenge, right? An opportunity to have more deeper and meaningful partnership means that we have opportunity to have more impact together, and more successful outcomes for communities. But at the same time, more deeper impact also comes with more resourcing, which can be, of course, challenging. So, I think the change that I've seen on the nonprofit side is how you balance, right, what that right level of partnership is, what the needs are. And as corporate partners change their priorities, sometimes that might mean changes in partnership as well, and understanding what that means for your organization. And how to move forward from there. But overall, I think it's a really positive change for communities, because deeper, more impactful partnerships at the end of the day are always going to be more impactful than superficial ones.
Kellogg, now Kellanova, has been a partner with the Global FoodBanking Network since our founding, since the beginning. How would you say that relationship has changed over time?
Yes. So, as we have looked, as I described, more strategically at what partnerships look like, the early days of our partnership were really about helping to set up and establish those food bank support systems. And we did so in quite a few markets. South Africa comes to mind, for example. I remember on the communications side interviewing folks from the food banks there and telling the story of the great work that was happening and the food donation work that we were providing there. But as we look more strategically at advancing sustainable and equitable access to food, we recognize the opportunity beyond just the food donation piece, but also setting up sustainable programs and systems, particularly for children, to get access to food. We had an emphasis on children because you've all done some terrific research on the criticality of those early years and ensuring that kids are getting access to the nutrition that they need to be successful. We saw the opportunity to support that. And so we started looking more closely, particularly at school feeding programs that are supported by the food banking network across the world, and the opportunity to support those programs in addition to the food donation work that we were doing. So that's sort of, I think, kind of the next evolution of the partnership that we had. And working together more deeply to create those sustainable ways for kids in particular to get access to food. The partnership has continued to expand from there as we evolved our strategy from a very hunger focus to a more larger food systems and food security focus. So that meant folding in the work of our sustainability partners, because it's not just about getting food to the people who need it. It's about ensuring systems are in place that food can be sustainably provided to communities. And if we're not being mindful of how, climates and other things are impacting that work, then we're not looking at some of the root causes and the systems that we can be putting in place to ensure the continuity of communities getting access to the food that they need.
You've touched on some great examples already, but what are some of the investments in GFN that you're most proud of?
South Africa has continued to be one of the markets where we've supported the school feeding programs. And my partner there, Zandy, who leads the social impact work on the ground, she once said, I take very seriously the privilege it is and responsibility it is to feed 5,000 kids every day, and ensuring that they're getting the best start to the day through those school feeding programs, and then having all of those important outcomes that we talked about that the research shows, and we know because we've been on the ground and we've seen it in person, the impact that these programs have on children and their families. So I'm very proud of the work. That market sticks out in particular for me.
Yeah, thank you. That's those are some really great examples that are really impactful in communities all over the world. And thinking through those experiences in that work, I'm wondering if you see further opportunities in the supply chain to recover even more food, and what's needed to make those opportunities a reality.
So one of the initiatives that we've taken on is how can we really look very deeply and intentionally at our supply chain for anything that could be potentially donated. This has even included taking one of our food bank partners into one of our plants and looking at the whole line of production and saying, okay, from this point backward, this is food that wouldn't be, from a quality and safety perspective, food that would be right for donation to food bank. But from this point forward, yes, this is all food that could potentially be safe, quality food that we could donate to our food bank partners. And we literally went through every part of the process, every tote, every thing on the line and said, what are opportunities here? How could we capture this? How could we capture that and ensure that it's getting donated to our food banking partners? What resources, tools, processes, and procedures do we need to put in place to make sure that is happening? So that's something that we have personally done as a company to try to help look at and ensure that anything that we can donate can be donated. And that also includes, we went into our room where we're holding ingredients and, okay, what happens to this ingredient if we don't use it all? And is this, something that a food bank can take? And really talking to the food bank partners about what do you need? What types of things can you take? What bulk items can you take that could be repackaged? And all of that.
What do you think is the best way to create mutually beneficial and impactful partnerships between businesses and nonprofit organizations?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. I think one is really understanding what mutual outcomes that you are looking for. That I think is one of the reasons why our partnership, for example, has been so successful, right? As I mentioned, as we looked across that ecosystem of it's not about just getting food to the people who need it. It's about making sure there's enough food for everyone. How are we looking at food systems? What does food waste and climate impacts look like? How are we ensuring well-being of communities, not just from a nutritional standpoint, from a social emotional standpoint?
So over the course of your career, how have you seen the landscape of social impact investment change?
Yeah, from a corporate perspective, I think we have seen many partners become more strategic with their social impact work. Even thinking about our own journey at Kellogg and now Kellanova, when I was on the communication side, helped the team with the strategy to get more focused on the areas in which we were supporting. We'd sort of had like 4 different focus areas over the years where we had made social impact investments. Hunger had always, as a food company, you'd expect, been one of them. But we saw a real opportunity to get more crystal clear on exactly what we were supporting from a food security perspective. And we knew that if we could funnel more resources into that work, we could have greater impact. And so that was the first iteration of what is now called our Better Days Promise strategy around advancing sustainable and equitable access to food. I would say we were pretty early, I think, for a lot of corporate partners on that journey. That was 12 years ago, 13 years ago now that we were going through that process, and have continued to see, I think, more and more corporate organizations going through a similar process of being more strategic and thoughtful about the type of work that they're doing. And then I'll kind of go back to something I just said around thinking innovatively, but also tried and true. One of the trends sometimes I see in partnership is, in fact, I was just talking with a nonprofit recently with this challenge is, as they were looking at grants and investments, the question is often, what's the next innovative thing? What's the next innovative thing that we can do? And that's important. We need to keep our eye on that. And strong partnerships look at those things together. But sometimes innovation for innovation's sake isn't necessary. Sometimes it is the tried and true of what we're doing that is working, and how do we continue to do that? And partners that understand the balance between those things, I think, is really important. How are we looking at things that we know are going to move the needle, that may be new and different? And what are the things that we know are working? And even though we may have funded that work for 5 years now, it's working and it's having important outcomes. So let's continue that. I think keeping your eye on what is impactful for communities, what is changing lives, what's working, what is ensuring that people are having sustainable and equitable access to food, like for us. If we keep that on the core and not what's something new and exciting, then you're going to keep your focus in the right place and have successful partnership together.
Stephanie, I have one more question for you. What is one specific change that you want to see in the near future for our food systems?
Yeah, I think, part of it kind of builds on what I just said. Continuing to think about what is that right balance, right, between what is new and innovative and what is working. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of changes happening in the world around us. And so staying focused on that, the outcomes for community and thinking about that will be more important than ever. And the other thing that I appreciate about Global FoodBanking Network's model is the solutions that happen at grassroots level are important, and solutions that sort of happen at a larger macro level are important. But the beauty is when those things come together and work, right? So you are able to look across markets and say, this is similar to what's happening over there. And so there's some similarities here. We can create synergies. We can help you create effectiveness by adopting some best practices that we've seen over here. But at the same time, when you're doing that, you're not saying, well, exactly what we did in this market is what we should be doing in that market, because there's differences still across those markets. And that's where true success in this impact work really lies, is how do we continue to find that right balance between what's happening at a grassroots level that's important and impactful? How can we find ways to scale that, but not in a way that takes away from what's happening at a grassroots level, that having impact in community? And I think that's such an important role that Global FoodBanking Network plays. And for companies like ours that are in multiple markets, it's helpful for us to have a partner that's looking across those trends and best practices to help ensure strong outcomes, but at the same time is still being very mindful to what's happening at a local level, because we have people that live and work in those communities too. They see what's happening at a local level and they want to be engaged in it. And you help facilitate that.
Stephanie Slingerland, thank you for being here with us today and every day since 2006. We really
Yes.
appreciate your partnership.
Thank you. And as I said, I really appreciate your partnership too, and this opportunity to come in and share some thoughts.
We're here today with Danny Flores, Senior Manager of HEB's Hunger Relief Program. It's good to see you, Danny. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jason, for having me.
I wanted to start off by asking you about your background a little bit. How did you first get into social impact work?
Wow. Well, actually, when I've been with HEB for 30 years. So I started as a mechanic within the company, tractor mechanic, trailer mechanic, refrigeration mechanic, and I actually drove our first mobile kitchen that we used to go out during the months of November and December and feed a holiday dinner to our communities. And what started out back in the late 80s with 2 dinners in November, December has really just kind of we've built it up to 37 dinners across the state, feeding 350,000 people. So when I first got introduced into the hunger domain per se for HEB, it was through our Feast of Sharing dinners and going out and feeding our community. And I worked with a good friend of mine, Eddie Garcia, who started the food banking program for HEB back in that time. And me and him hit it off. And, I just saw all of the wonderful work that was being done. And coming from a Chicano background and knowing my family struggles and everything else like that, I was just kind of like, oh my God, I get to do 2 things. I get to drive a big truck across the state of Texas, and I get to feed people. So that's kind of how I got introduced into it.
That's a really cool story. I didn't know that about you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So over the course of your career, how would you say the landscape of the social impact investment world has changed?
It's changed dramatically. I think there's been so many benefits for being able to bring to light and scale the issues of hunger, across our state, across our nation, globally, right? I think, we started this as a culture because HEB is still privately owned. Way back in the beginning in 1905, Florence Butt was giving food to those on the Guadalupe River, that she didn't, wasn't able to sell. And I think, it's really transpired, and we've kept that culture for us to continue to give back. And, I think as retailers, of course we need to be successful, right? And we are a business. And I think to be able to kind of look and see product that we don't want to have go to waste, and there's a huge impact socially to be able to give that product to the food banks and to agencies to be able to put back on the families' tables that come in and really shop our stores. It's still a win-win. We're able to get food to those who need it, but also it's got a plus to be able to serve and do business in those communities.
What are some of the investments in GFN and maybe in food baking in general that you're most proud of?
Of course, we want to be able to donate as much food as possible. Because for a person to know that there's, still issues of hunger, there's no reason why any woman, man, child, grandparent, veteran, anyone should have to worry about where their next meal is coming from. And we donate in order for you guys to be able to help fill that need. And for us to continue to have built the foundation with Global FoodBanking Network, Feeding America, it's great because, not everything's perfect. We understand that. But to know at least we are doing something to help you offset the wrong and by helping put food on families' plates so they don't have to worry about that. That's where it's all at, man. It's just, it's as easy as that for me.
Something that you've emphasized is important is data collection. What role does data collection play in HEB's hunger relief program?
Well, it really allows us, I wear two hats within HEB, right? I wear a food banking hat, which sometimes they say, I think you're wearing the food banking hat a little bit too much, but at the end of the day, we are a business. So, we donate from our stores, our retail operation, our stores, and our warehouses on a daily basis. And one of the things that, if we're looking at sustainability across the board, upstream, downstream, we want to be able to save as much food as possible. Yes, we do know there's some items that need to be composted, and there's just some things that just have to be discarded, bone barrels or going animal feed for whatever the case. And we want to make sure that we're putting those in the right buckets per se, right? All of those items, and we're lessening the landfill issue. But the one thing that is a plus is that we're able to share that information, that data, with our operators to be able to make good decisions when they're ordering, when they're, looking at their stores and, are we ordering too much? Or are we not doing this? We don't want to take away from food banks, but we have to do it in a very smart and strategic type of way. So the data that we're able to get from the food banks on as far as our donations, we get that and we share it because, our partners that are in the stores working, they also want to know, hey, from our store here in San Antonio, this one store, we've been able to provide how many meals for our community, also, doing their part. We don't know what everybody's situation is. So, there could be somebody that is utilizing a pantry, and just to know that we are doing the right thing at the end of the day by making sure that this food goes the right way and being able to see that in the data, that helps the business side of it, but it also helps the morale of our employees in ensuring that we are doing the right things, taking the right steps to make sure that this product goes in the right direction.
My last question for you, Danny, is what is one specific change you want to see in the near future for our food systems?
Oh man, donate more. I know their food safety is a huge thing, right? We struggle with this because I am always talking to our quality assurance folks to, why can't we donate this? Sometimes I come off a little harsh, I don't want to, but I'm like, it's edible, we can eat it. But again, knowing that sometimes some of the, everybody, we love to create things, right? Sometimes the broccoli on ready to serve meals, when you have a chicken, broccoli, and a potato thing, a mix, they might not make it. They have a certain shelf life. But sometimes I just really wish we can donate more. If we can all just in the world just say it's okay to donate product that is edible, if we do it in a safe and practical way.
Danny Flores, thank you so much for the conversation and for the continued partnership.
Thank you, Jason. And it was a pleasure to be here. And I'm so lucky to have been here with the Global Food Banking Network from day one. And lots of love to you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning into another episode of Food for Change, serving solutions for people and planet from the Global Food Banking Network. And a huge thanks to our guests, Emily, Phi, and Brianna. We also want to say thank you to our sponsors and longtime GFN partners, Kellanova and HEB, for making this show possible. Before you go, take a minute to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, and head to foodbanking.org/foodforchange to see full video episodes and for more ways you can get involved. Join us for our next episode, a special World Food Day conversation with GFN CEO Lisa Moon and Jomar Flares from Rise Against Hunger Philippines.